and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. My guest today is a lady who is rocking her personal brand. She has over 23 years of experience in the real estate industry. She is the founder of the PM Collective and SoCo Realty. Ashleigh Goodchild, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tracy.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice being a guest as well, because as you know, I do my podcast, and so it's nice to be on the other end for something different. I'm excited.
Yes, it does make a change, doesn't it? Ashleigh, I'd love to know, perhaps you could walk us through what's led you to where you are at this point in your life.
I think it's just a series of really good decisions and a series of always thinking of one step ahead and worst case scenarios, I guess. And I've always done that from a very young age. So when I started SoCo, it was because I wanted to make sure that when I was ready to have children, that I would have an income coming through and would be able to continue having an income for the family. So it was always that, forward planning. So I started when I was 23, and in my mind, I was like, I'm going to have children maybe at 28, 29, which I did.
Yeah.
And that gave me 5 years to sort of set up the business and create, what could potentially be a passive cash flow moving forward when I had children. But unfortunately, there's nothing passive about it, because I was actually just talking to my daughter last night. She's nearly 15, and she was talking about how she was born on a Monday. And I said, no, you're born on a Wednesday. And she goes, no. She goes, I was born on a Monday. And she checked and she was right. And I went, that's right, because I asked the doctor if I could book you in on a Monday so that I could do payroll on Wednesday. And that gave me a couple of hours to recover. And my daughter just rolled her eyes because, of course.
Oh, my goodness.
So while I talk about having a passive income, it's quite interesting because I still work incredibly hard and long hours, but I do that because I choose to. So not because I have to. Yeah.
And there's a difference as well in it being a choice other than having to actually work those hours.
Yeah, totally. I also had a moment the other day where I was driving to work and I was just so unmotivated, and the kids and I drive. It takes us about sort of 30, 40 minutes to go to school each day. So we have lots of chats in the car. And just in my mind, I was thinking, imagine what I would do if I didn't have to work, or if I was a stay-at-home mum, or one lot or whatever it was going to be. And I was like, I would probably go out and have a massage, and then I would, have breakfast with a friend. And my daughter turned to me and she goes, but you can do that anyway, Mum. You choose not to do it. And that's when I actually booked in that massage that we were just talking about off there. I booked in that massage, and I was like, you know what? I need to do more of that, because I do have a choice to do it, and I'm choosing not to. And I'm trying to create and get better at creating that passive life, which is really hard, as any business owner knows.
Of course. And I love that your daughter is so wise. She kind of is your soundboard.
She is, yeah. She's very wise for her age, which gets her in trouble. But I know that her traits are going to be positive when she's an adult.
Yeah. Definitely. And as you walk us through, have you always been so driven?
Yes, the short answer is yes, and not for any reason. I mean, I can't tell you that I've had any, trauma in my childhood, or come from a situation where, I was driven, I was at rock bottom. I'm the most vanilla person you've ever met. I've never even smoked a cigarette before.
Oh my gosh.
I've had a very easy childhood, a very easy, mediocre upbringing. I couldn't even tell you what. I did have a hardworking mum. Mum and dad were both hardworking, but dad did trial a couple of different businesses throughout his life, but ultimately he was an accountant and project manager. And then mum was a nurse, and she still works today. She's 70 odd, loves work, probably will die out, in the community she works at. She works in Aboriginal health. But he just is driven from that point of view. So because, everyone has their own normal, and my normal is that that women work. So that's how I was brought up. My mum always worked. So, and I was looked after by my older siblings or my aunties, and subconsciously that is, you know, that's how we create our own normal, isn't it? So for me, I don't actually think that I'm driven in any way, even though it looks like that. It's just that's my normal.
Yeah, and something I absolutely love about watching your socials and seeing you on LinkedIn is your personal brand and just how you completely leverage, off that. How have you found having a personal brand has sort of, I guess, helped you on your business owner journey?
I'd love to say that I have been strategic with my personal brand and was set out to be on a mission to, to create it. And I'm going to be disappointing the people
Oh,
like
no.
yourself who is your business, but it really was, I don't even know why I just did it. I just felt like I've always loved having ownership of and taking responsibility for my own self and, even for business. And if I'm going to, again, be forward thinking, yes, I've got the business, which I have SoCo with my brother-in-law, but, forward thinking, there might be a time where Bill says, Ash, you know what, let's sell, or Ash, he's older than me, so he might want to retire soon. So the future Ash is always thinking, okay, well, if SoCo does sell one day, what am I going to do and what am I going to have? And so the only thing that you have and you own is your reputation and your personal brand. So whether I am in real estate or I decide I'm going to become a hairdresser or I'm going to go open a cafe, that personal brand I own, and I can change that at any point that I want, on my socials. So I feel like that's just taking good responsibility of your future and your future reputation, because I feel like I will be protected. And, things around you can change. Life happens, businesses happen. And you just always have to be prepared for something to throw a curveball at you and to know that you're not having to build something up again. I guess it's probably a morbid way of thinking about it, but it's just how I think. So no one
it's
can
realistic.
take that away from me. So in terms of my personal branding, it's really developed really nicely, and I'm pretty happy with where it's at. But I just do what I do. I love learning about personal brand. I love encouraging people to do it. And at the end of the day, everyone just wants to work with a person, with a human. It's It doesn't matter what you do. And if I reflect on the people that I use in terms of creditors and trades and all of that, I always go with the person, even if they've moved agencies or even if they've moved businesses. I've always followed the human, not the company. And so that's sort of what I think happens and why we should be focused on it a bit more.
I love that you've mentioned that, because I often say to my clients, your audience wants to connect with the human behind the logo. And how are they ever going to get to know you if you're too nervous to embrace social media? You're too nervous to make a post on LinkedIn out of the fear of what might happen. And I'm like, but what potentially could happen if you actually embrace it, So I love that you've mentioned that. And I have, I joined TikTok, and you're great at it as well. There's such a true sense of authenticity that comes through in everything that you do. And it's really great to see, whilst you're in real estate, you share about, being a mom and all those other experiences that you're having.
Yeah, there's oh gosh, and I can't even remember what the name is. There's starts with P. Let me just say, as I'm talking, I'll just see if I can quickly find it, because it talks about a bit of a phenomenon that is coming along that, and it's called, let me just quickly see, because it's worth mentioning. If I can't find it quickly, I'll share it with you later. But basically,
that's
what
okay,
it's saying is that the authentic self, that someone who's in a professional field actually comes across as more trusting and more authentic when they show a raw version of themselves, and someone that makes mistakes and has very raw content, because I love raw content. So there's actually a benefit. There's a benefit of your personal branding, like, you know, we said, being raw, being personable versus being too polished, because it creates that connection. And I remember, you know, years and years ago, when people were, you know, when you post food and all of that, and people get really funny about it, and they're like, why would anyone want to look at what food I'm eating, or why would I post about that? But if you really deep dive into why we post things like that, because it allows a connection. So just randomly, one of my girls at the office, she loves playing golf and going to the driving range. So a lot of her content's on golf. And it's not about that, but it's about someone, when they see you, going, oh, did you play golf this weekend? Or developing a bit of a trust circle. Like, they might go, oh, Ash really loves going out for breakfast, and that's just a topic of conversation. It's not actually about the food. It's about working out what you like, what you love, what you hate. Like, everyone on my socials knows that I hate the gym, because I do I get with the PT each week. I, you know, whinge about it. I struggle with it, but they know that that's who I am and that's my personality. So we connect with those people a bit more. And going into, I mean, going probably off track, but even going into the whole AI with video, I don't think we should be too concerned by it, because that's what I'm concerned about. And coming back to that P effect, whatever that name is, I'll think about it when we finish recording. If you have a very scripted AI, potentially, like, if people think that they're going to be able to use AI for their personal brand, I don't think it's going to have the same connection, because you have a perfect avatar that looks like you talking, and yes, it's showing up on video, but there's no rawness, there's no stuff ups, there's no way to connect with that type of thing. So my TikTok is very raw from that point of view. But all my content is like, do you know, yesterday I was sitting at the front of the kids' school, and I was just doing a quick story, and I was sitting at the front of the high school, because I went to a high school, one at primary, and it was like 45 minutes before school finished, and I was like, what the hell? Why are their parents lining up, like parking 45 minutes, like, before school finishes? Like, don't you have anything better to do? And anyway, that was what the crux of my my story was. But as I'm sitting there, I went, I swore by accident, and just went, oh no, I'm at the wrong school. I'm not even meant to be at the school. I'm meant to be at the primary school pick up first. I don't know why I had that blank. And I was really going to delete it, because I was like, I've completely stuffed up this Instagram story. But then I was like, no, whatever, I need to put something up, I'll just put that up. But the amount of messages you get from those mistakes and those real life situations, like, you know, people message you, go, oh my God, Ash, that's why I love you, you know, this is going to happen to me one day, because you know what, Ash isn't perfect, and Ash, you know, forgets at school, and she, you know, goes to the school for pickup, and yeah, that's how we connect.
Yes, definitely. And it really keeps it real and keeps it human.
Yeah, totally.
And Ash, something else you mentioned earlier is curveballs. How do you handle the curveballs, sometimes the massive curveballs that life throws us?
I don't really notice them as much as another person would notice. So I'm sure that I've had lots of curveballs thrown at me, but I don't allow myself to pay much attention to them, because I'm always going back to that one step ahead. I'm always one step ahead. So even for things like staffing, for example, I always know what my next plan will be. So if I have a staff member that leaves, or gives notice to leave, I'm fortunate that doesn't happen very often, but if I did, I already know what my next plan would be. So I just move to that plan. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that helps me, because it allows me to make really quick decisions. I'm a big believer in make decisions quick. I don't procrastinate, and I already know what the next plan is. So yeah, that could be seen as a curveball, but it doesn't bother me, because I I've already prepped everyone with, okay, if anyone leaves, this is how we're going to rejuggle or restructure. Same goes with with everything. I always sort of think of the worst case scenario when we first started the business. I remember at 23, we decided to get a loan out for 30,000 each. Because we figured that would be about 6 months worth of expenses and our wages and things like that. And, again, I remember the thought going through my mind was, okay, well, what if it doesn't work and I've got this loan of 30,000? I was like, well, most 23-year-olds have gone and got a loan for a car for 30,000. I haven't.
Yes.
I'm loaning it for a business. And if it doesn't work, I'll just go get another job and pay it off. Like it's not, I've still allowed myself that time and that buffer. So yes, if that didn't work, I already knew what my next step ahead was going to be. So
yes,
going through life, that's just probably how my mind works. Yeah.
And how do you sort of incorporate that into your daily life? Do you kind of have a strategy session, or do you journal, or is there some sort of planning involved in that, or is that just how you've kind of always been wired?
I am the biggest winger out there, and really disappointing because I don't do any of that. I look at my diary the day before. What have I got planned on? I work it out. I'm probably like genuinely, it's just in my personality. I'm just quite a cruisy, relaxed person that's not really phased. I do trust that the universe, looks after me, and I trust that everything works out. I don't, sweat the small stuff. I don't procrastinate. I do make quick decisions. But while that's really good for me, I do recognize that it actually can be quite frustrating for other people around you. And that's something that I'm learning as I get older. I had a big event, and a couple of years ago was probably one of my biggest events that I had. And we had 150 people coming. We had people flying in from interstate for this, to speak. And I remember the night before, I said to the girls that were helping me, okay, so we'll rock up at 7:00. This is what we've got to do. And they cornered me, got around in a circle, and they said, Ash, you need to get whatever is in your head on this piece of paper right now. Like they were actually getting really stressed about it, because I was like, oh, fine, just rock up tomorrow, we'll sort it out, like no biggie. They're like, no, like we need a checklist, we need to know exactly what we're doing. And even like when it comes to like my podcast, when I have guests on mine, I realize that some people are happy just having the conversation, which is the way that I like it. Other people panic so much, and they want a list of questions. They want to know exactly, because that's how their mind works.
I've had the same.
So I'm trying, and even though you can say it's black and blue, hey guys, it's just relax, it's just a conversation. It's not. Like for me, I'm very conscious that can stress people out. So as I get older, that's sort of what I'm learning. Sorry, long answer to that question, but
no, not at all.
I'm just wired that way I'm better like last minute. But if I look back actually at how I did at school, I was always that last minute planner as well. Like if I had a test on Thursday, I'd study on the Wednesday night. I was always I'm better off doing things last minute and having a time constraint, as opposed to being given too much time. Even catching up with friends, don't plan that in advance with me. Tell me the night before that you're free tomorrow night and you want to have dinner.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So, and my friends know that that's how I work. So now we don't plan anything.
Yes.
But we're more spontaneous with it, because that suits me better. I think that's just a wired thing.
Yeah, I want to ask, what's your star sign, and are you the middle, the oldest, or the youngest child?
So I'm a Scorpio, and which is where the feistiness comes from. So in my family structure, it's actually quite interesting, because I actually identify as a couple of the positions. The reason being is there's 4 children in our family, and my mum and dad had my 2 older sisters when they were quite young, when they were 17 and 18. So they are about 10 and 12 years older than me. And then my mum went and studied, and then her and dad had my brother and I. So I don't actually remember living with my older siblings because
Yeah.
by the time I turned sort of 5 or 6, they had moved out of home. So they, my memories are of me being the oldest between my brother and I, because it was just him and I most of the time. But then I was also the third out of 4 when it came to the bigger family. And because, or so I'm told, my sisters looked after me a lot when my mum did night shift, as a nurse. So I probably I'm recognised as a younger sibling in that point. So yeah, I've never fitted in with the older or younger or middle child situation. I'm a bit of everything when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's great. And do you find, like, I have to ask you, do you meditate to kind of maintain, you say you're just so relaxed, which a lot of business owners get actually quite stressed. If one thing changes or there is a curveball, it can kind of really throw them off, or their attention span just goes out the window. Do you meditate, or do you just kind of roll with it?
I don't have the patience or the energy to meditate. I find that the only way that I can actually tune out for an hour is if I literally book myself in for a massage or a facial. That's the only way that I get rid of my phone, not have anything, like have silence and all of that. Even floats, like I find it really hard in a float because I know you can have music and stuff, but I find myself just bouncing off the edges, like being stimulated.
I did the same.
but I do recognise that means you should do it more so that you can learn to relax your nervous system a lot. But massages and facials is probably how I would relax. But it's terrible. I really enjoy just, I enjoy sitting on my computer, studying, learning.
You love what you do.
I just like doing that. Like the long weekend we've just had, I had a beautiful, relaxing weekend. If someone said, "What did you do on the weekend?" I'd be like, "Nothing. I just laid in bed all day. It was so good." But in reality, I actually did 4 modules of a buyer's agent's course that I'm studying at the moment. Created a new online course for my members and launched that, and just did some research on how to create the best Facebook ads. But if you ask me what I did, I say I did nothing. I had a really relaxing weekend because I laid in bed and did it all. So it's I'm not someone who can sit and watch TV or a movie. I force myself to do that only because, again, conscious of people around me with my partner, and if he's watching a series, while I would prefer just sit there and do my emails, I'm conscious of him and not being on my computer and sitting and doing something. I feel like I do try to be mindful of that. So no meditation, no yoga, I just do what I do, and if I feel the need to relax, I'll go get a massage. It's pretty simple, but that's all I do.
Yeah, and actually, I'd love for you to share with us, because there is such a sense of passion that comes through with everything that you do. For our listeners, perhaps you could share exactly, what all you are doing at the moment and all the exciting things you have going on.
Yeah, SoCo is like my base, and I always say that's my that has been, we've had it for 20 years. We've got long-term staff. The team's really great. I don't have to do a lot in the business. I do obviously still do work full-time in the business, but I don't get caught up in staffing issues or anything like that, and staff management. I do a lot of lead generation, which is where the personal branding comes in, because I rely on that a lot for getting new business. And I get asked a lot to do like podcasts for investor podcasts and things like that, which is really great. I love that space. And then I run property profiling, and property profiling is a bit of a hybrid system where I consult to buyers agents, I consult to private investors, and I help them buy interstate with confidence. So I will be their person on the ground looking at a property, giving them all the negatives of a property they want to buy, to make sure that they're well informed and not being taken for a ride by a sales agent who's obviously advertising the property in its beautiful best light, but my job is to look at it in its worst light. And to sort of use an example, selling agents, they're not doing anything wrong, but they're photographing a property, and I had a bathroom, an ensuite that looked beautiful and new, and looked great on the photos. But when I went to go to the property, I could see that the tiles had been painted over, which is fine, but they'd been painted over, and the splashback around the vanity had those Kmart sticky splashback tiles put on it. So yes, it looked beautiful to photograph, but at the end of the day, it was still an original bathroom, just paint on the tiles. So it's not like it was new tiles or anything like that. So I would say to the client in that situation, like the property's fine, it presents well, it's a good property, but all I want you to know is that you're not buying a brand new renovated ensuite, ensuite. So just make sure just make sure you know what you're buying at the end of the day. It's not a deal breaker, but you want to know because you're going to be expecting a brand new bathroom otherwise. So it's that type of support where it's really helpful having someone on the ground. So I do a lot in that space, but I created that a few years ago as a lead generation source into SoCo as well. So I'm a big believer in multiple sources of leads into a business, and we shouldn't just rely on just our website.
100%.
So I have maybe 7 types of lead generation sources with varying websites and things like that. So that's how that all started, and that's going really good. That's really busy. So in the last 5 days, I've had 14 investors from over East contact me, new ones looking to buy. So it's pretty, it's busy, but I really do love that space. And then PM Collective. So PM Collective I've been running for maybe 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. And that started off by I think I had 4 business owners, and they had messaged me ironically at the same time, and it was January, and they said, can I catch up just to go through some business planning with you? I just need to speak to someone about what I'm wanting to do in the business. And I said, yep, that's fine. But funny enough, a few of you have asked, would you mind if we all just came together and just did it in one hit? Because January was really busy for me. They're like, that's all fine. So we had a catch up, and they loved it so much. They were like, can we do this again next month? And I've got a friend that might like to come along. And I was like, sure, let's do it again. And we just started catching up regularly. And then it came, I had a couple of people message me to say, Ash, I'm not allowed to get out of work to come have a coffee, but I'm really, really keen on catching up. And so I was like, let's do a podcast so you can listen to these conversations if you can't get out of work. That's how the podcast had started. And there was another there was another driving force, which was in the real estate industry, we've got a couple of private Facebook groups. And the problem with those private Facebook groups is that if you don't know someone in person, you only know them online, sometimes their comments can be taken the wrong way because you don't know their personality and their nature. So it was also about connecting people in person to get to know each other, so that when you do see them on those social platforms, you know who they are, you know what their heart's like, and you won't maybe take things so offensively, if it's been commented on. There was a bit of that happening. So that's sort of why we also had started. So then, and it just ended up turning into some events, and now we have a leadership team all over Australia. So in each state, I've got people that want to, help me and do these coffee and conversation meetups. Wow. So that's really great, and it's just nice for the industry, no matter what industry you're in, to have connections with other people in a casual, informal setting where you guys can just talk about what's going on, pain points, what they're struggling with. A couple of them also have personal situations going on, and it's really nice for them to have someone that's not a friend or a family member just go, listen, it's really tough at home, or this is going on, and get a bit of support, because sometimes we seek support for those things not from our friends or family because we don't want to burden them, we don't want to disclose our problems, but sometimes we feel more confident talking to people that we sort of know, but they're not too close to our situation. Yes. So that's sort of how that all turned out. And so now we have a membership. I've just launched a new course for property managers to help them implement property profiling in their business. And then, it's sort of, I feel like only in the last couple of days, I really found my niche in that they're all flowing together, the businesses now, where before they were like quite separate. Now I'm going, you know what, like this is the benefit of property profiling for property managers. This is the benefit, and it's just coming in nicely. So that's sort of where I'm at. And then the last thing which is worth mentioning is then the work that I do with DV families and people that need support. So I sit on a board for Find Your Feet Foundation, and we've developed a community funded rent relief support, which is, I had clients that said, Ash, like, what can we do to help? Is there any way that we can help the community? Because there's yes, there's people struggling, but there's also people doing really, really well. So for as little as $20 a week, they can actually support a family in need in WA. And then the Arana House, the housing project, I am quite involved with that, and that's really just helping survivors of DV get into the private rental market. And we are what we call impact agents. So I promote people becoming impact agents and helping fund these projects, because it's very vulnerable for anyone trying to find a rental, let alone someone who has to disclose personal information and being in a very vulnerable situation. So I love that space of work as well. So that's what I do.
And you're an amazing mom on top of all of that.
Well, I do my best. It's what I never say balance. I always say it's a tilt. So some days it tilts in favour of work, and sometimes it tilts in favour of family. And the family knows that, the work knows that, and that's how we get through.
Yeah, and that's a very realistic way of looking at it, because I find the word balance is like very, balance doesn't exist. So I like how you say it's kind of tilts one way or it goes the other. As it sounds like you live a very fulfilled life, and it's very inspiring to see. And you seem to have such a sense of peace and great energy about it as well. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah, something else I wanted to touch on that you mentioned is lead generation. You seem to have a really good sense of understanding, that leads come from different places, so into your sales funnel. Do you mind to walk us through that for our listeners? Because what I find with a lot of the clients I work with, they seem fixated on one sort of idea of generating leads. It could be their email newsletter. It could be, just Instagram. Do you mind to walk us through the benefits of having all those different lead generator funnels and how it sort of helps with sales and your business?
Yeah, it's just, again, I'm going to keep on saying future Ash, future thinking. So, for example, at the moment, and marketing goes in waves. So at the moment, the marketing for real estate agents is there's a lot of interstate investing. That's all fine. But what happens is when we're getting those clients, we start putting all our energy in that, but we're not thinking that this isn't going to last forever. These leads coming from interstate, they might last for 3 years, 5 years, maybe they last for 10 years. I actually don't know. I don't expect it to last any more than 5 years. So then that's obviously one lead that I've got at the moment, which is the interstate, and the second lead is my network with buyer's agents. So then I have the forward thinking part of me has gone, okay, well, when this stops, and I don't know when it's going to stop, and it's going to be out of my control when it does, I need to make sure that I've got a local audience as well, and that I'm not depriving my local audience of any marketing. So for that, we started doing our local campaigns 6 months ago, and we went back to the traditional letterbox drops, social media marketing, and targeted for our local area. So now I'm because one thing that we find with marketing is that we do something, but we expect the results straight away. And it's like how it works. Like you've got to let it build up the traction. So I started 6 months ago with a plan that I'm going to need 12 months of traction in my local community. Even though we've got a good presence anyway, I just had to get back to the traditional stuff. And so then I'm giving myself 12 months so that when the interstate activity does die off, I haven't missed out on that opportunity, and I'm not starting again. I've already developed that, and So that's I guess just the forward thinking of making sure that you are spreading yourself around, because it will always go in waves. So with that, obviously you got your social media marketing, and I love looking at things that you have to put effort into, but I love exploring marketing options where there's no effort as well. So that could be, signage, street signs, bus signs, whatever you're in, but whatever industry you're in, looking at what marketing you can do that will take no effort, but will you just pay an amount each month, because that's like set and forget. I love that. And you're the expert when it comes to branding versus marketing, but you sort of have to balance that out a little bit as well. The future thinking with all my interstate investors, I've created a community on WhatsApp actually, and so the WhatsApp community is really strong. So I've got probably 330, I think, as of today, active investors wanting to buy in Perth. Now, they're not people that necessarily use our property management services. Some of them do, but I've enticed them into that, because one of the biggest questions I get is, do you have any off-market opportunities? And it's like, if I get an off-market, it goes into that group and only that group, and so that's enticed them to be in there. So
totally.
And I've now been getting messages from other real estate agents saying, Ash, I've got an off market. Could you put it into the group? I'm like, sure, no problems at all. I have no issues doing that. But so again, if we think about the future of that group, now I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a trail here. So let's just hypothetically say that I've got 30% of those people already as actual clients. That's 100 clients. I've still got 200 people on a little trail. So when their property manager comes up, they're going to be in my group, and I've been helpful for them in that group. I should be the next person. So it's like, creating the future trail of managements there. Then you've got, we've got campaigns through our CRM, which we do 12-month campaigns. And it's always about educating, and it's always giving constantly. So with that, it gives them a lot of YouTube interviews and videos that I've done with people that can help them on their journey. So whether it be a settlement agent, a finance broker, insurance, interview. But what that does is that now brings people to my YouTube, because I'm using that in my email marketing, and then I'm increasing my YouTube subscribers, which I have to say is really, really difficult. It's a long, slow burn.
Yes. I hear you.
Oh gosh, I've got 680 subscribers on YouTube, which I'm really proud of.
That's really good. I've got 45.
Yeah, but it's low in comparison to these people that have tens of thousands. But
I know, amazing.
It's so hard, isn't it? But again, you're bringing people into that. So now I've got my YouTube community. And then I've got my LinkedIn community, which is probably, if I was going to tell you where I got all my leads from, it would be from YouTube and LinkedIn. They're my two. And it's constant. I've got someone who helps me do connections constantly on LinkedIn. I'm a bit of a believer that you just connect with everyone. And I am ultimately, when I'm posting, I'm attracting a wider audience. So I go on quantity for those things. So I've got that. I've got, but then I was like, maybe I should have my own personal website. And I'm a big believer on personal websites. And I created the personal website. And then I thought, well, property profiling is a lead generation. Property profiling can have an independent website. So then I get people come through that. So in summary, of course, you've got all your social media. You've got your YouTube, you've got your WhatsApp community, you've got my podcast that I'm a guest on. I've got the buyer's agents. I've got and then not only the SoCo Realty website, but the Ashleigh Goodchild website, plus the property profiling website. So it works out, I think it's 8 or 9 lead sources in general, plus, your letterbox and your marketing there as well. So when one thing dies off, there's still 7 or 8
something else,
other marketings working on in the background. That's really what it comes down to, bringing people back to those, back to the website, back to our database. Because I went to a conference on the weekend. They were saying, and I like this terminology. They said you need to get your audience from being a rented audience to an owned audience. So really, on all those social media platforms, they're rented. Like, you don't own those people, because those platforms could shut down tomorrow and you wouldn't have them. So how do you get them to your own database so that you own them and you've always got them? Sounds possessive, doesn't it? But it's the way.
But it's a good point as well. It's a very good point, because like you said, things can change in an instant. And if you haven't kind of, the way I view it is that you've almost got a web of everything going, and then all these different contacts come from there to your main sort of, I guess, hub. And if something changes, what do you do? Like, you haven't quite got their contact details and can sort of, share more about what you do. So I love that you've shared that, because, I think there's a bit of a misconception that you just need to focus on one area. And like you say, if something drops off, if you only got one or two, like, there's not very much to kind of fall back on.
And I think and I mean, you might, and I hope I'm not contradicting you, the advice that you give any clients, but the thing that I see with people sometimes overthink it and overanalyze it. So if I was to actually look at all my lead sources and say, oh, well, this one only brings in 5%, this one only brings in 3%, if I did that, I would probably stop putting energy in them. But like YouTube, it's a slow burn. Like, you've got to just continue. You've got to trust the process. You've got to not worry about the end result sometimes, and just worry about just being consistent and showing up. And I am so glad that I consistently did YouTube, consistently did WhatsApp group. And even like going into PM Collective, I'm glad that I consistently showed up to those coffee and conversations, even when no one was there. I've had times where I've rocked up and there was like one person or no one showing up to them. And I could have quite easily gone, oh my God, I'm not going to do that again.
Just chuck the towel in,
but I was like, no, use the opportunity to have some quiet time and work from a cafe. And I did that. And I'm so glad, because now, like, my groups on average have between 15 to 20 people, and we've got some really strong groups around Australia. So if we focus on the only small results and stop doing things because of those small results, we really are missing out on a big opportunity.
So true. I was listening to Eddie Pinero. He's like the motivational speaker. When you're at gym and you don't feel like being there, and he's like, come on, push through. You're the chosen one. Like, go for gold.
I need that one. No, I don't know, but I need it. So share it with me later.
He's really good. Like, if you having if ever you're unmotivated, or you just, think, oh my gosh, what's the point? Like, he's really good. But he actually shared that I think he consistently showed up for 7 years. Like, he literally was just dedicated to the cause. And that's what led him to be so successful. And he's like, if he had stopped and just thrown the towel in, like, this is way too hard, he would have missed out on all the wonderful opportunity that having his YouTube channel has now opened for him. So I love that you shared that it takes consistency and just constantly showing up. And a lot of us just want that instant gratification, but that's not what it's about.
And how lucky are we with marketing that we can create a perception and change things as we need. So that coffee that I had to catch up when no one turned up, instead of that big group photo that I would normally take, I take, a photo of just me by myself having a coffee and talk about the importance of having one-on-one time. Like, always use it to your advantage. And it's perception marketing. I don't have to say to people, oh, no one showed up today. I just switch it around to positive. That's all you have to do. We're lucky that we can do that.
So true. And I also love with all the different platforms that are out there, like, we literally can make ourselves, infamous. We have the opportunity to connect with people we would have never had the opportunity to connect with like 20 years ago. So we literally have no excuse. If you've got the drive, got the platforms, you can literally, sky's the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. The course, the conference I went to, we had Ryan Serhant, which he's like one of the biggest sellers selling agents over in New York, I think. And he talked about future you, which is clearly something that I've always practiced anyway.
Yes.
But it's absolutely that future you. Like, and say that to yourself all the time. Like, does future me, want to have successful coffee conversations, yes, I'm going to keep on doing them. Does future you want to, have Wednesdays off? Yes. And even though like right now you might say, I don't have time to take Wednesday off, but future you wants to, we'll start showing up as future you. Start acting like that person now. He has a great story about a Rolex watch where his future you was that he is going to get himself a Rolex watch when he, does this next sale. So what he did is he went and got a fake Rolex watch and he wore it like it was a real one. And
he rocked it,
till he could afford one, and then he could afford one and he bought a real one. It was that I'm, showing up as that future person and looking like that future person and acting like that person, even if you are not ready to be there just yet. So that's really something that like is constantly on my mind.
Yeah. And Ash, do you have any advice for someone, because you sound like you have got a great sense of your future self? Have you got any advice or sort of questions one can like walk through, or perhaps if someone does journal, perhaps there's a couple of things they could ask themselves, I guess, just to condition themselves to think more about their future self?
Yeah, I think that I think journaling is, scientifically, it's an amazing thing to be doing, and when I get in those moments, pen to paper is always the best thing to do, to psychologically, I think. The biggest, I actually don't like the word consistent, but it is consistent, but I would just really start acting like the person that you want to be. And I would, every single decision that you make in life should be towards that goal or that person. So I love taking a good risk. So because the worst thing that can happen is really not that bad. And so if you always know what the next step would be or what the worst case would be, then you're always protected mentally. And I mean, if you think about it, no one ever really regrets anything. They regret not doing it, but they don't regret doing it. Really a bit of a random thing to say, but we actually, my husband and I were talking about this last night, and we were talking about that, there's horrible stuff happening in the world, and we're talking about, people getting divorced, and, we've got some clients where they should be getting divorced and they're not getting divorced. And we ended up saying, and he's like, why don't people realize that it's not a bad thing, like it can be a positive. And I said to him, name me one person who has regretted getting a divorce, like as in like, someone who's gone through that. I'm not talking about happily married people. I'm talking about people that have been in a bad situation.
They're not compatible.
And they're not compatible, and then gone, oh, I wish I never got a divorce. That you never hear those stories. That does not happen. So it's like that, but we need to think about the worst case scenario. And actually the other thing that so when we think about the worst case scenario, we're mentally prepared there. The other thing that I actually just had a really good bit of advice, and it just slipped my mind. We'll come back later. But yeah, I guess that's just it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Make quick decisions, and you can make quick decisions by knowing what that worst case scenario is. So you're, like I said, it's all about being mentally prepared, isn't it, for things?
It's a big one.
So that you don't procrastinate. Yeah, that's. I feel like that's a really big thing. And I had a call from a friend this morning, and she's like, Ash, I just need some Ash truth, like that people call me up and they want to hear what they already know, but they just need someone else to tell them. And they sometimes you just need someone to make that quick decision for you. So
so true.
Yeah, just finding that little circle of people that you can just call up, because we don't call people enough these days, or we don't reach out to people and say, hey, can you help me with something? And I love when people reach out to me. So having said, if you can't make those quick decisions, have a friend or someone that you know that can help you make that quick decision.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, just don't want to be lingering on things for too long. What a waste of energy. Worried about something for 3 days when you could have sorted it out 2 days earlier.
10 minutes or something, yeah.
That's right. And it goes back to goes back to like the olden days where you'd knock on people's houses, like on doors, and just rock up to people. We just don't do that enough. We don't reach out to people and say, what about this? I reached out to someone the other day and said, what profit margin do you have? Like, or how many members do you have? Because I have no idea what's normal, what's not. Yeah, it's okay to ask those questions. People are happy to share them. And so then you can go, okay, this is what I need to do next. I'm a big believer in talking to people, asking those questions that you think might be a bit transparent, but people are very happy to share. It's it makes life a lot easier. And the ultimate goal is to really enjoy the journey of working, of life. It's a huge focus for me, making sure that my staff are happy every day. Oh gosh, we could go into the whole 4-day work week, which people are promoting, and in my mind I'm like, why don't you just really like your job and not strive to be doing less hours and strive to be doing more hours because you love it so much? Like that's what I think of when I hear
of course. It's a good reframe.
It's it's a journey, isn't it? Like my team love work on a Monday. We enjoy spending time together. Like it's just nice to be able to be in a life where you just enjoy everything that you do and you're not striving to do less all the time. Like we strive to do more. And I see that as being a bit of a problem in the future when we're constantly striving for less.
Yeah, so true. And I also love that you shared that, we don't actually call each other enough or, meet in person. And I am a big Bridgerton fan, so I binge on it badly when I do watch TV. But it actually struck me. I'm like, there's such a formality, so-and-so is called on you. Meanwhile, they're by the front door, and there was such a respect amongst people that was really illustrated. It wasn't taken lightly. Like if someone gave you their time or, it was so formal. It just struck me, oh my gosh, we're so cash now, we'll just DM each other on Instagram. And they were so eloquent and, so-and-so has called on you. And oh my goodness, it was just a bit of an eye-opener.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been watching Bridgerton actually, but I've got to wait a couple more weeks for the next episodes to come out. So we're on a 2 week.
I haven't got that far. Oh, right. No, I do. I must say, I struggle to watch TV, but when I do, it's usually like 1 or 2 episodes. It has to really, I love it, but it has to really grip me because I'm like, well, I'd rather watch like Alex Hormozy or something on YouTube and educate myself. But a good binge every now and then is really good. So
yeah, absolutely.
Ash, to wrap us up, I'd love to know, what is the bravest thing you've ever done?
So it probably would be seen as quite boring and vanilla again.
No, not at all. That's just
I did have probably the bravest. I don't know if it's the bravest because but a couple of years ago I was at the end of my tether and I had a friend who just randomly said, Ash, I'm flying over to Napa over in the US for a wine tour, a holiday with my girlfriend.
That'd be amazing.
There was like 8 of them. And she was like, do you just want to come? I was like, you know what? Yes, I do. And I didn't even sort out my kids. Like they were at that time, like 9, 7 and 5. I literally just booked my ticket, my flight. I emailed my family and I went, I'm going to be out of Australia between this date and this date. Sort out the children. Don't care who does them, who looks after them. But between yourselves, can you just sort them out? Because I won't be here. And I did that. And that was probably the ballsiest thing because I would never normally do that.
Yes.
But, I did. And gosh, it was pretty cool to do it. And I had a fantastic time and I, meeting people that I didn't know, because that's also like a great adventure as well. And that's probably the bravest thing that I've done, because that probably came with a bit of a risk in that my family could respond back to say, well, we can't, but I knew that my family knew. I think I trusted that my family would know that if an email was sent out like that, that they would bend over backwards to change any of their own plans, because Ash has never done that before. She clearly did need it. So
of course.
That's probably the biggest thing I did then, and I wouldn't do it again now because my children are older and very rarely would be happy me going away without them. So as they get older, they know what they're missing out on. But yeah, probably not crazy in other people's minds, but it was definitely something that was very, very unusual for my personality.
Yeah. Did you find you were sort of at a point of burnout? Had you just had enough, or was there something else sort of going on for you that you just decided that was it?
Yeah, no, I think it was probably a year out of being separated. So it was probably that end of that 12 months of,
Yes.
leaving a husband, and, it's sustainable for so long, but
Yes.
then it becomes very exhausting at the end of it. And so
Of
it was
course.
probably at that point that I was at. And yeah, it was just really nice not to have any responsibility and to forgo that responsibility. And sure, there'll be parents out there that say, well, you can't do that. But you know what? It's really, really good and healthy to have a couple of weeks where I don't have any responsibility. I was at that point, I literally didn't even want to, I didn't actually care. And that's a problem when you get to a point where you don't care. That's why you need to put stuff out. But it's we all get it, and even the most put together person still has those moments, and
Totally.
that's what I think we don't realize, that we are all completely normal, no matter what happens on your socials, how organized you look. And that's why when we talk about, you must do this, you must do that. Well, no, I don't. I might look organized and I might look like I'm doing lots of content and doing it all, but really, I'm not organized. I don't want to say I'm lazy, because I'm not lazy, but I just don't care for that structure.
Yeah. Makes total sense. And I think what you did is brave, because I think with any separation, there's a lot of emotion. There's such a heightened amplitude of emotion as well that you go through. And most people wouldn't have the courage to actually put themselves first and say, I just need some time out. And I think, a lot of people always putting everyone else first. They're people pleaser. They constantly go to keep everyone else happy. So I think it's actually really great that you said, enough's enough, and I'm going. So, and it would have been an amazing trip as well.
Oh yeah, it was really, really good, really good. And it's funny how the universe turns out, because I remember when I did, I think I booked it with maybe 3 weeks notice or something like that, or 3 weeks notice of going.
Wow.
And I actually had met Lindsay, who, so this is going back 5 years ago. I met him just before I left. And so the universe sort of, I feel like was timed everything really nicely, because that was like my last sort of, I say last girls' holiday, but it was just that last sense of freedom, because then what was coming after that is, we've been together for 5 years now, but we manage a blended family with 6 kids full time. So we've got his kids full time as well.
Yeah.
So it's now to do something like that takes a lot more planning.
Of course.
For his family and my family. So the timing was good. I don't think I would have ever had an opportunity to do that again. Not till the 18th.
Okay, so you actually met him before you left?
Just before I left. So it would have been a couple of weeks prior.
Wow.
And then I had obviously just sort of booked the trip, or, sort of in that space. And
Oh my
and
goodness.
then it was good. So
It's funny how the timing, like you say, all worked out perfectly.
Yeah, it always does. But then I also always look at the positives of all the timings of things as well, and see it all as a positive.
Yeah, and Ash, one last question. Have you got any advice for someone who is potentially going through a separation and they're really struggling to potentially see that other positive side, or the Lindsay that might be, on the horizon?
Yeah. My office, we were all sort of single mums. I still call myself a single mum, but like I said before, no one has ever regretted leaving a bad relationship. No one has ever gone, oh, I wish, I'm going to keep on referencing the future you. If you understand the emotions that are involved with divorce, not only for you and your partner, you will really understand that the emotional roller coaster. So it's the 7 stages of grieving, and if you research it, it was something that I had researched prior. And you always know what the next step is. So we know that I can't remember even the order of it, but the first step might be sadness or depression, then it goes into anxiety, then it goes into regret, and then it goes into, assurance, or whatever they are. But
yes, there's a cycle.
There's a cycle. And if you know what that cycle is, every time you're in that cycle, you know that it's what the next stage is going to be. So you're preempting, okay, I'm just in this. That's why I feel like I want to go back. But you know that the next stage is actually going to be this stage, and then you're going to start feeling better. So I feel like that was something that was really helpful, not only for me, but for my ex-husband, when he was feeling like that. And I would share those 7 stages with him to say, listen, you don't want to get back with me. You're going to feel fine, you'll get through this stage. So that would probably be my biggest tip, is understand those cycles, understand that a female or the person leaving the relationship is going to be at a different stage in that cycle than what the other party will be, because that makes a big difference, because you're not generally going the same cycle at the same time.
The same. So
that's something that I would say with that. And again, always be future thinking, because it's morbid to think, but life does happen. People leave, circumstances happen, people die. You have to always think of what would happen if this occurred. I feel so bad even saying it so matter of fact.
No, please don't.
It's just so important. And we deal with a lot of tenants, and we are inside their lives, and we see these relationships that are happening. And it's we always sort of say, just even if it's just $20 a week, or even if always just be prepared with something. But you can be physically prepared, and you have to be mentally prepared. Generally, it's the mental preparation that we need to be more focused on. So that's part of the big issue. But the other question I used to always ask myself is, would I be happy my daughter being in this relationship? And if your answer is be happy your daughter being in that relationship, then you need to leave. That was a question that I had asked myself quite a lot.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing, Ash. Ash, where's the best place for our listeners to connect with you?
I'm very easily Googleable, so it's pretty easy to Google me. But I am like SMS, email. So we've got ashleigh@socorealty.com.au, and you can find my mobile as well. But I love connecting with people on Instagram and LinkedIn. So they're my 2 favourite spots socially as well. So always happy for people to reach out if they need that, someone who's got that who has a distance that can give them some support or anything. I'm very open to connecting with people online as well, no matter what industry they're in. So it's it's always good.
Thanks so much, Ash. We'll definitely pop all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today, and just for your authenticity and for all that you've shared as well. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tracy. Great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Take care.